welcome to September's monthly Dating and Relating Q&A. I'm so happy to be here, and this will be a place where I do a live stream every month here inside of our private Facebook group, where you get to ask me your question that you have about relationship, around dating, regarding challenges, and I'm happy to just spend some time offering you a lesson or a teaching point or some skills that will really support you. So with that said, let's dive in. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Gabriella Taylor. I'm a relationship specialist. I'm the founder and creator of Extraordinary Love Transformational Programs for Women. And it's just truly an honor to be here with you. You know, I'm just coming off of a day of where I've been with my last program, Foundations of Extraordinary Love, ended a couple of weeks ago, and we were filming testimonials of grad result stories, success stories. And as a thank you for being willing to share their story, I then offered them complimentary coaching sessions. So today I've had the privilege of being in several coaching sessions with these women that are graduates, and just really hearing where they're at post the powerful work that we've been together, and also how important it is that we have support ongoing. You know, this life of ours is rich and wild and varied, and I'm just a big proponent of how we can never have too much support. So speaking of support, let's turn it over to looking at support with communication. So one of our beautiful members, Stacia, wrote in regarding a question having to do with, you know, how can she communicate her needs in a way that doesn't have her closing off or shutting down or closing off and becoming blame-based or resentful. So I'm here to just really share with you a process that I've developed that works consistently when it has to do with talking about what we need or want with a man in a way that actually brings him closer instead of pushing him away. So there's this really sincere question here that I know that so many of us can relate with, right? Like, how do I communicate my needs, my boundaries, and express what I really need and want for myself and what my vision of a healthy, loving relationship is? So how do I communicate? So this is a question that so many of us have, because growing up, you know, for one, most of us were imprinted to turn against our needs. You know, one of the concepts that I teach from, it has to do with your intimacy model. And your intimacy model is literally the model that was shown to you, having to do with your parents, your grown-ups, your society, the people around you, media around you, that modeled for you, for every single one of us when we were little girls, what we could expect from life, how our needs were cared for, if we were seen or heard. And in our intimacy model, based on what we saw, it created all these internalized and externalized messages, right? So what we saw set up these messages that told us that, you know, little girls need to be pretty and pleasing, or you're on your own, you can't trust anyone, or, you know, some messages might have to do with, you know, it's not safe to speak up for yourself. So many of us have received all these really confusing messages having to do with our ability to communicate what's real for us, because what we're talking about is really, at the end of the day, being able to speak truth, you know, locate truth inside, and then use our words to speak truth into what we're experiencing, so that we can then adequately convey what's real for us, so that way the other person has an opportunity to meet our needs or wants. You know, really our only responsibility in relationship is to be truthful, to the best of our ability, to be truthful and to accurately represent ourselves. So with that said, I see a couple of you are here, but I can't see who you are. So type in the chat that you're here watching, because I'd love to welcome you and greet you. And so again, this is a private, within the private Facebook group, Extraordinary Love, Relationship Coaching for Conscious Women. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is 4 things you should know when talking to a man, because so many of us had so many injuries, or we were discouraged to speak up, or maybe what we saw, maybe the modeling that we saw had speaking up come from a place of demanding or being self-righteous or like really expectant or entitled. And we don't want to do that either. We just want to know how to own our experience and accurately express it, especially to our man, so that our needs can be met and we can also meet their needs. So let's talk about the 4 things you should know when talking to a man. So, and I want to just express for a little bit, why does this matter, right? Why does this matter? Because it matters because if we're really in the game of authentic loving, extraordinary loving, if we're really in the game of showing up in our fullness, in our transparency, in our vulnerability, in our beauty, in our glory, and being met and matched, by a man that also brings to us his true self, it requires that we're willing to be seen. And because so many of us were shamed or neglected for what we needed or wanted, we learn to go invisible. We make ourselves invisible, we make our needs invisible, we make our wants invisible, and then we make them invisible to our partner, be it a prospective date, a prospective partner, someone we're dating, or in our existing relationship. And the reason why this matters is I know you're here because you're in the game of creating an extraordinary, loving, conscious relationship that's founded on these principles of authenticity. And in order to be in alignment with that, it means that we're willing to have maybe the uncomfortable conversations, yet the meaningful conversations that will really allow someone to get close to us. The way they get close to us is by having an accurate sense of what it's like inside of us, what's alive inside of us. So why does it matter to talk to a man in a way that's open and honest and also not demanding or blaming on him or coming from a place of shutdown? It matters because that's how we give ourselves a chance to be loved. And that's how we give ourselves a chance to really speak up for ourselves. So many of us are really in this practice of learning self-advocacy. It's an ongoing practice where so few of us learned how to really speak up on our behalf when we were little, that as grown women, we're learning this now. So it's so important. It's so powerful. And what this gives us when we are able to name our experience, when we are able to name it in a way that actually engenders a deeper listening and understanding, what it gives us is so much like connection, just the fulfillment and satisfaction that comes from being deeply seen and heard. It gives us a sense of intimacy. It gives us a sense of safety. And so learning powerful communication skills, it's so crucial when it has to do with developing, what it takes, the skills that it takes that go into a healthy relationship. We all want a healthy relationship. We all want flourishing love, yet so few of us are taught what it takes to actually create this. So my hope for you today is that you walk away from this having a sense of like a tool, that you can put in your back pocket that will really help you. So what are these 4 things that you should know when talking to a man? I'm going to pair them with the 4-step communication process that I teach, so that way you can have a sense of what you need to know and also what the steps are. So the first communication skill step that you need to know has to do with our ability as women to speak the microscopic, unarguable truth. The Hendricks call it the microscopic truth, but it's the truth based on what happened to the observable eye. As women, so much of our subjective experience gets distorted by our emotions, especially if we feel our feelings have been hurt. So this first step that in terms of the communication skill is that we want to name what we're seeing. So step number 1, seeing. We want to name what we're seeing, what the observable truth is. Because if we come at our man with our interpretation of the thing that happened, then they often feel automatically like they've done something wrong, or they might fight against it because they don't see it. They don't see the incident the same way. So you want to like accurately name, like, I see when you're holding my crystal in your hand, it's an unarguable truth. I am holding a crystal, in my hand. So if you're saying to your man, when I noticed, when I saw, I observed, when this thing happened, like no one can argue with the fact that I'm holding this in my hand, right? So when you express with them from the point of what happened, their rational mind can get it and track with it and doesn't go into an automatic defense that's then going to argue with the subjective nature of our emotional experience. So the first step is seeing, observing, naming what happened. So let's say the thing that happened is, I noticed when you came home from work and you didn't take your shoes off and you tracked mud into our house. right? Like you notice that they tracked mud into the house because their shoes were still on. That is non-negotiable. You can't argue with that. It is what happened. So the first communication step is seeing, observing what actually happened, not our subjective interpretation of it having to do with our emotional response. Number two is we have to stay in our lane. We have to stay in our lane and own our experience, because again, it's so easy to pop out and put it on the other person, because so many of us have been conditioned that way, where it's like you're thoughtless, you weren't being considerate, you know, like you made me feel left out or unimportant or whatever that was. That's not going to elicit a response where he's receptive as the listener. So instead, we want to keep it in our lane and really practice a healthy level of personal responsibility for our experience, for our feelings, by naming what we're feeling, the direct experience. So when I saw you came home from work with your dirty shoes on and tracked mud into the house, I felt frustrated. I felt unheard because I've asked you to take your shoes off before. I felt concerned, you know, whatever it is, naming the direct experience of your feeling. Not, I felt that you were being disrespectful. Not, I felt that you weren't hearing me, or I felt that you don't care. Do you see how that energy is still going out onto him? So step number two is naming what you're feeling. So step number one, naming what you see, you know, what you observe. Number two is naming what you're feeling as a result of what you saw and observed. So I felt mad, sad, glad, frustrated, hopeful, disappointed, whatever it was. Number three, we want to be specific with what it is that we're actually asking for, because we don't want to just express what we saw and how it made us feel. We need to give direction as to what the correct behavior is, because men are so beautifully willing when they feel safe and at ease and that they're not under attack by us. Most good, healthy, well-adjusted men are so interested in making us happy, in pleasing us, in winning with us. And that can only happen when they don't feel like they're under attack. So, and that they have clear direction as to what to do to win with us. So step number three is we have to be explicit with what it is that we're needing or wanting. So that's not being vague, that's not being ambiguous, it's literally speaking directly into what you need. So for example, when I saw you came home with your dirty shoes and you didn't take them off and you tracked mud into the house, I felt frustrated because I spent the afternoon cleaning the floors, and what I need is for you to take your shoes off before you come in. So it's a very specific direct request. No mind reading, no second guessing. So many of us, like, we have this, you know, it's like this inner censor that kind of like the truth is inside of us, but like by the time it comes out, like what our needs are, it goes through this inner censor that downplays it or undermines it or dismisses it or heightens it or escalates it, and we turn demanding. So all we want to do in the step three is express the simple purity of what it is that you need. What are you needing? What is your request? What is the thing that would make a difference here? That's the positive direction that teaches them what it is that you need or want. And so what you need to know about that is when we're vague, when we're wishy-washy, when we're undermining ourselves and dismissing our needs, dismissing our feelings, that's when we, you know, turn into parts of ourselves that we don't really feel good about. So it not only undermines our own self-esteem because a part of us knows that we weren't direct or clear in what we need, it also sends off mixed messages to our man where he doesn't really know what'll make us happy. And so then we want to go into step number four. Step number four is really, again, it's vulnerable, but it's where we enlist partnership, when we ask for agreement, when we invite them, when we ask for permission for their willingness to meet us in our need. So for example, when I see that you come home with your dirty shoes and track mud into the house, I feel frustrated and disappointed because I was cleaning the floors all day. What I need is for you to take your shoes off. Are you willing to do this? Are you willing to do this? So step number 4 is asking. So the communication process is seeing, feeling, needing, asking. And the reason why this matters and why you need to know this is important to ask permission from a man, because men do not like being mothered or told what to do. Men do not like being henpicked. Men do not like being scolded or to feel like that they have no choice. So there's something just inherently respectful and honoring to ask, like, are you willing? Can you do this? You know, can we come into partnership here and agree on this? So this is the 4-step process that I teach to all of my couples that I privately coach, especially for navigating difficult conversations, especially conversations that have had a lot of emotional charge around it. And I encourage you to start small. Start small, start with your girlfriends, start with your family members. Maybe don't go immediately for the men. Start small, start practicing naming what it is that you're seeing, naming what it is that you're feeling, naming what it is that you're needing, and then naming a request and asking, like, are you willing to do this? Will you meet me here? So I would love to hear how this works for you. So place it in the comments below. Even if you're watching the recording of this, I will still respond to them, and let me know how it goes. And until our next beautiful live stream, I wish you well. I wish each one of you just a beautiful month ahead of you, and that each one of our hearts be nourished, that we be at ease, that we be filled at peace, and just any places of pain inside be just bathed through the grace of forgiveness and healing that allows old hurts to wash away, so that we can truly open to the loving that's here for us. So God bless you. I'll see you soon. Let me know what you think, ladies. Bye-bye.